All right, let's kick things off with a huge question, one that kind of sits at the crossroads of science fiction and, well, actual science. Is the language we speak just a tool we use to say what we're thinking, or does it go deeper? Does it actually shape the thoughts we're capable of having in the first place? Let's dive in. So, to get us started, think about this wild idea from the movie Arrival. What if learning a totally new language, an alien one, could literally rewire your brain so that you experience time differently? So you could see the future. It's a mind-bending concept for sure.
Okay, so gaining actual superpowers is, still firmly in the realm of sci-fi. But that core idea from the movie, the one that says our language shapes our reality, that is a very real and actually pretty controversial scientific theory.
And at the very heart of this whole debate is something called the Sapir-Whorf Hypothesis. The simplest way to think about it is this. It suggests that your language isn't just some passive thing you use to describe the world. Nope. Instead, it's an active shaper of ideas. It's almost like the operating system for your mind.
Now, this idea didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's been brewing for centuries. It really started as a philosophical concept back in the 1800s. Then anthropologists like Franz Boas started connecting language to what a culture needs to survive. But then, the linguists Edward Sapir and his student Benjamin Whorf took it way further. They argued that the very grammar of your language organizes how you see reality.
Okay, and this is where it gets really important to pay attention. The hypothesis isn't just one single idea. It actually split into two very, very different versions. One sees language as a kind of prison for your thoughts, and the other sees it more like a gentle push, a preference.
So, on one side, you've got the strong version. It's called linguistic determinism. This is the extreme sci-fi version from Arrival, but basically says your language puts your mind in a prison, making it literally impossible to think thoughts you don't have words for. Now, I have to say, this version is almost universally rejected by scientists today.
But the weak version? That's a whole different story. It's called linguistic relativity, and this is where things get fascinating. It doesn't say language builds a prison. It says language just paves certain roads. It makes some ways of thinking feel more natural, more automatic. And for this idea, there is some pretty incredible real-world evidence.
So let's get into the good stuff, the actual evidence. We're going to look at some amazing examples from all over the world that really show how the language you speak can subtly nudge how you perceive everything from colors to your place in the universe.
Let's start with the color blue. In English, we just have one basic word, blue. Simple enough. But in Russian, it's not that simple. They have two completely separate basic words, синий for dark blue and голубой for light blue. For them, it's like the difference between red and pink. And get this, studies have shown that because their language makes this distinction, Russian speakers are actually faster at telling the difference between two shades of blue if one falls into the синий category and the other into голубой.
Okay, from color, let's jump to space. How do we even talk about it? Well, in English, we use what's called an egocentric frame. We'd say the cup is to your left. It's all relative to our bodies. But a lot of other languages use a geocentric frame. They'd say the cup is to the west. It's based on absolute cardinal direction.
Now think about what that does to your brain. If you speak one of these geocentric languages, like some Australian Aboriginal communities do, you have to know which way is north at all times, just to have a normal conversation. The result is that their brains are basically rewired to have a constant, near-perfect sense of direction. It's like having a built-in biological compass that most of us just don't have.
This next one, might just blow your mind. In a lot of languages, like German and Spanish, objects have a grammatical gender. They're either masculine or feminine. Take the word bridge. In German, it's feminine, die Brücke. In Spanish, it's masculine, el puente. So researchers got German and Spanish speakers together and asked them to describe a bridge in English. The German speakers used words you'd associate with femininity, like beautiful, elegant, slender. The Spanish speakers, they use words like strong, sturdy, long. The arbitrary grammar of their native language was literally casting a shadow on how they perceive the object itself. It's incredible.
But hold on, it's not a done deal. This isn't a settled debate by any means. There's a really big counter-argument out there that says, actually, our thoughts exist in a space completely separate from spoken language.
And this brings us to the nativist view, an idea championed by thinkers like Noam Chomsky and Steven Pinker. They argue that all humans think in a kind of universal language of thought, something they call mentalese. In this view, our spoken languages, English, Russian, Spanish, whatever, are just different translations of this much deeper shared programming that we're all born with.
Pinker, in particular, is a really strong critic. He thinks a lot of these Whorfian claims are, in his words, banal. He argues that a culture having lots of words for snow isn't profound. It's no different than a carpenter having lots of words for different kinds of wood. It's just a reflection of their environment and their expertise, not a fundamental difference in how they perceive reality.
So, where does all this leave us? We've gone from a Hollywood sci-fi movie all the way to the front lines of a huge debate in cognitive science.
So what's the bottom line here? Well, learning a new language probably isn't going to let you see the future. The strong version of the hypothesis just doesn't hold up. But the evidence for that weak version is really compelling. Language isn't a prison that traps your thoughts. It's more like a guide. It carves out these little mental pathways that make certain ways of seeing the world feel easier and more natural than others.
And that leaves us with one last, pretty profound question to chew on. As you go about your day, looking at the world through the lens of your own language, how much of what you see is just reality, is actually the subtle, invisible shadow being cast by your own grammar?